You asked, and we delivered. Introducing the Dave Moss Tuning Subscription Channel. All of Dave's premium content for one low price. Put one of the best suspension tuners on the planet to work for you. Find the link in the description box below and get started today.
Choosing an engine size. That's an interesting question. What are you going to pick for yourself? Now, in some countries, it's defined. You have to have this cc, and then you can have this cc, and then you can have this cc, and then you can have whatever you want. Some it's you can have this, and then you can have whatever you want. So what do you have that's available to you in your country in terms of what does the law allow you to get? Everybody has to start on a small bike, so by default, you're going to get something between 50 cc's and 300 cc's. And work that. Now, if you're through all that learning curve and now you have the choice of anything you want, what are you going to choose? So a 300cc type motorcycle, whether it's a single or a double, that's superbly economical, but it ain't going to go fast. So the criteria for that bike, what is it? Well, aside from economics, the great thing about a small bike is it's very easy to ride. It's very light, it's flickable, you can go all over the place. You don't need very much brakes. You can learn engine braking and understand how much a small bike can carry in corner speed versus a much bigger, heavier bike. There's actually a ton of fun in riding a small bike through the twisties because it teaches you how quickly you can go through the corners once the bike's set up for you and your ability. And then you barely even touch the handlebars and it transitions over to the other side. Go to the track with something like that, everybody on bigger bikes is anchoring up on the brakes and you're flying around the corner. So there's a ton that you can learn on riding quickly on a 300 or smaller bike that will give you a huge step up in skills if you're going to move up to the next division of 600s. So consider not just the engine size and the fact that it won't go fast, but what can that engine and that chassis type give you in terms of skills and knowledge that will really pay massive dividends when you move up to the next engine capacity. Now we have to have a 600, the next probable most popular class. Usually 4 cylinders, usually high revving, usually not very torquey, not much at all unless you go back to 05 and earlier, where the 600s were actually much better in the mid-range than they were on top end, until you got a pipe and a commander and blah, blah, blah. So 600 these days, generally speaking, you've got to wind them up to get them to work. So anything below, say, 11,000 RPM, there's really not very much there. And it's not that dissimilar to a 500 twin, which is fine if you want to putt around, but did you get a 600 to putt around, or did you get a 600 to get more speed? Well, if you got more speed, you got to ride it differently, which means riding between 11,000 and 15,000. Now, to do that, generally speaking, you need to go to the track. You don't need to be doing that on public roads because it's a nightmare trying to keep the engine in its right RPM because you have stock gearing, which is based on fuel economy. So if you're going to do that, go to the track. And then at the track, learn how to use, like we did on 2-strokes, your power band. Because the one thing that's important about that is, can you keep it in the right rev range? Now, the other important thing to know about that with a 600 is, where is the power? So if you don't have access to a stock dyno map, Google it and go get it. Because pretty much every stock bike out there, you'll find a fuel map for and a power map for. And what you've got to look is, where does it give you the most power and where does that power fall off? If you go to the track and the power falls off at 14,000 RPM and you're revving to 17, you're slowing down. Yeah, I can see some light bulbs going off. So if you choose to ride a 600, there's a price to pay for riding that cc of bike. Is it torquey enough in the mid-range? If it's not, then you got to rev it out. Well, if you got to rev it out, get to the track. Do it properly, do it in the environment where you can do it safely, and most importantly, really enjoy the performance of a 600. All right, on to the big boys. Things with 4 numbers. Yummy. What's the point of those on the street? Being lazy. Honestly, it's being lazy. You've got so much torque down low, whether it's a twin or a 4, doesn't matter, or a triple. You've got so much to just wind on and smile. The problem is you've got a bike that does 100 miles an hour in first gear. Yeah, that's not worth finding out how fast it goes in first gear. That's really not a good idea at all. The other part about buying 1,000 is, yeah, it's great if you're lazy and it gets you out of trouble easily with just a small twist of the throttle, but how many gears are you going to use on 1,000? 2, 3 on your average road? Especially if you ride tight, twisty roads? Sure, it's nice on if you're commuting backwards and forwards and you're just leaving it in 6 and just yarding on the throttle like I did with my old ZRX 1200. That was awesome. That was so much fun. But to wake that thing up and get it rolling, now you're talking hyper speeds. You're talking 120 to 170 miles an hour to get this thing to work. And if you are going to do that, you need to go to the track. And if you're going to go to the track, the bike has to be set up specifically for the track because you have so much power of acceleration and braking. So having 1,000 for the street is great if you want to be lazy. It still needs to be set up for you in the way you ride, but if you take it to the track, you need something completely different. And the only way to learn a 1,000cc bike on its peak power is to get to the track and go to a track day. Once you've done a track day with a bike like that, you'll probably continue to ride at the track quite often because it gives you the opportunity with everybody going the same way with the whole track open for you to use. No gates, sheep, pieces of toast, newspapers, things running across the road. You can actually enjoy that level of performance that you purchased. So bear in mind, using 1,000 has huge benefits for being lazy. But outside of that, get to the track and go and learn how to ride it properly, but make sure the bike's ahead of you because if you start tapping that power, the bike setup needs to make sure that from a performance point of view, it does everything that you need it to do.
To schedule a remote tuning appointment for you and your bike with Dave via text, email, Facebook, etc., contact Dave on Facebook or by email, dave@davemosstuning.com.